Yeah, the thing that backs Bitcoin is 400 exahash of digital power. To put that in perspective, that's as much power energy as the entire US Navy uses in its fleet, about 12.5 gigawatts. And also, it's a fleet of 5 million Bitcoin ASIC miners spread everywhere in the world that generate so much hash rate that if an AI took over every computer on Earth, all the smartphones, all the computers at Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, all of those computers couldn't dent the Bitcoin network. It's an extremely powerful digital energy network.
All right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and have you noticed that everyone on Twitter has apparently noticed this big bull flag or descending wedge or falling channel or whatever you want to call it? But my feed was absolutely full of people looking at these. And here's another one. If you've been watching this channel, you should be well aware that we're likely not going to break out. We're likely not going to break out of this downward sloping blue resistance line until some more time has elapsed, because we need to get towards the end of this cycle. The fact that we haven't broken out earlier tells us that rather than get a cycle which is right translated, something like this, the top's on the right hand side of the cycle and then declines into the cycle low, instead we know, because we're still in this range, that we're likely going to continue to chop around in here, find that cycle low wherever it forms, and then come out of here. So a lot of people are getting excited. A lot of people have finally been able to spot this downward sloping blue resistance line. But I think ultimately, unfortunately, we need a little bit more patience. Once we get into this neighborhood, of course, we know it will be go time. There's never been more reason to want to exit this system. You can see the US debt ceiling is now up over $500 billion since the debt ceiling was raised just 2 weeks ago. The total debt has crossed $32 trillion. This gives them an interest expense of around $1.3 billion per day. So you better opt out, and you better do it quickly. The Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock has been big news, and you can see it's garnered a massive 5.2 million tweets. So gaining an awful lot of attention here. And it's not just BlackRock, because now we have Fidelity, the $4.3 trillion asset manager, looking to prepare for a Bitcoin ETF also. Once BlackRock can get theirs approved, then of course it will signal a green light for many, many, many other large institutions to follow suit. And I would think that we'll see a Vanguard one shortly after Fidelity's. The news just keeps on getting better, because MasterCard has filed a trademark application to develop crypto and blockchain software. So I've been saying over and over again on this channel that the likes of Visa, MasterCard, all these payment rails, banks, institutions, they're going to have to adopt Bitcoin. They're forced to adopt it and embrace it. Otherwise, they're simply going to get left behind. So MasterCard seems to know that. And as you can see, they are taking a step in the right direction to remain relevant. The Bitcoin hash rate keeps on climbing. This is unprecedented. I can't remember a time the hash rate has been increasing like this. And as you saw from the clip at the start, this is an unfathomable amount of computing power that we've got now. Bitcoin dominance is something I don't really pay attention to. Few people ask me about this every now and again, and I always say I don't really pay attention to it. But one thing that's nice to see is that Bitcoin dominance has surpassed 50%, meaning that Bitcoin's market cap is now larger than every other altcoin combined. There truly is no second best. And this is one of the reasons that I tend to stay away from altcoins. If you've been here before, then you'll know I like to keep things super simple. So there is one simple trick you can do. If you just wait for Bitcoin to break its prior all-time high, then it's time to take some profit out of Bitcoin and into altcoins if that's your prerogative. But there's really no reason to be accumulating altcoins and then sit on them as they just continue to trend down and continue to get smashed by Bitcoin. So anyway, that's my super simple strategy. I prefer to wait for Bitcoin to break its all-time high, and then altcoins typically go straight into berserk mode. So a lot of people will be arguing, yeah, well, then you don't get to buy the bottoms. And that's true, but I don't want to be buying the bottoms now just to watch them keep going down, okay? Most of them are doing really, really badly. And one final thing before we move off of this, I actually think that this 50% number is not close to topping. I actually think this is going to continue for some time to come. But the real Bitcoin dominance chart is this one, okay? And it shows 99.99% dominance for Bitcoin. Here's the Bitcoin hash rate in blue versus everything else. All of these types of coins have huge cult followings, but the network has spoken. The network, the people have spoken. They have chosen Bitcoin as the number one and most dominant protocol. This is the only one that's unhackable. This is the only one. Look, you can see that right here. So Bitcoin dominance in terms of hash rate is at 99.99%, and it's going to stay that way. And if you're offended by some of the things I've said, if you're offended by the flippancy I have towards altcoins, please understand this. I understand if you like altcoins. I understand if you have a relatively low net worth and you're trying to find the pumps. I understand if you just use it as a small percentage of your portfolio for the speculative plays. But this isn't really about altcoins versus Bitcoin. This is about freedom. It's not just about how high Bitcoin goes or how much fiat currency you can make from Bitcoin. This is about freedom. The reality is that we really need real money. We need real money that cannot be compromised, that cannot be inflated. Otherwise, it's slavery for everyone. We must defeat the enemy, and we must defeat them for our own sake. Bitcoin is the exit. And this is why I spend so much time focusing on Bitcoin. There are plenty of cryptocurrencies that will likely do well. There are plenty out there that will pump. But how many of them will actually make you self-sovereign? How many of them are actually ethical? And if you don't know what I mean by ethical, here's a really nice example. It's not just that Bitcoin is inclusive and permissionless. It's also that under hard money, like gold, for example, governments fought until they ran out of their own money. Once they were out, that was it. They had no more money to fund their wars. But under easy money, governments can fight until they completely consume all the value of all the money held by their people. They can just continue to print money and use it to fund wars. They can continue to print money until everyone apart from them has suffered. As they print the money, it debases the currency. As they debase the currency, as I'm sure all of you are well aware, we suffer from inflation. It's no coincidence that the century of central banking was also the century of total war. To reiterate one final time, Bitcoin is the only ethically sound money on the planet. And so finally, huge news here, because the BRICS is considering Bitcoin as an alternative to the dollar. This is starting to make sense now. When we have the likes of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa all partnering up, all looking to move away from the US dollar and considering Bitcoin as a candidate, as an alternative currency for the US dollar, suddenly this whole urgency towards BlackRock and the US having a Bitcoin ETF kind of starts to make sense, right? The dominoes are slowly but surely falling into place. There's no way the US are going to allow BRICS to move to a Bitcoin standard without them having their slice of the pie. So I fully expect this bull run to be unlike anything we've seen. So not much to say about the charts. The dollar is still weak. Bitcoin, as I've shown you, is still sideways, and I expect it to continue sideways for a little while. Things I'll be keeping an eye on. I don't want Apple to lose these upward sloping trend lines. Otherwise, we'll be exiting the trade and looking to get positions back as the chart sets back up. Tesla, fully expecting some sort of pullback to set a new trend line, and then I think we can go again. We could possibly even add here and move stops up. I'm keeping a close eye on the VIX. So if I get rid of my squiggles, I think we could put a little hedge on. I think we could play a counter trend bounce here for the VIX, and it would look something like this, right? Bounce up to here maybe, and then a rollover once we find that cycle low at the end of the month. So I'm paying close attention to the VIX, looking for an entry. Of course, I'll update you if I can find one. Like I said, looking to make sure we can get out of Apple if it loses its critical levels. I'll be keeping a close eye on the equities as we are due a cycle low towards the end of the month, as I've been saying over and over again. And I'm still holding a gold short, looking for one final dive down before we can go again. So will we get it, won't we? That's to be determined. But we'll see how the market goes today. I'll update you tomorrow, as always. And in the meantime, enjoy your week. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.